All right. Well, welcome to, what is it, July 11th edition of the Medfield Board of Selectmen. It's the 12th. Yeah, it is the 12th. Yeah, the 11th was a long day for me. Welcome to July 12th edition of the Medfield Board of Selectmen. We will be holding this meeting in a hybrid format. The Board of Selectmen will attend in person, and members of the public may attend in person. And we do, in fact, have members of the public here tonight. But in addition, members of the public who wish to participate via Zoom may do so by joining by one of the following options. And the easiest way to do this is go to the Medfield Town website, pull up the Board of Selectmen agenda, and it will provide you with the links if you don't already have them readily at hand. And you can also get the meeting materials from that link as well. Just for purposes of everybody here, this meeting is being video recorded and live streamed on Medfield TV. Yes, so as we speak, it's going out. We have a microphone. If you do wish to talk, we'll ask you to grab the microphone. We typically would ask you to identify who you are and where you live if you're in the audience. The microphone isn't so that we can hear you in here. The microphone is so that the TV station picks up the audio feed. So you'll be talking to a microphone that doesn't appear to be doing anything, but it really is. With that, what I'd like to do is take a moment to just consider appreciation of our troops serving around the globe in defense of our country. Thank you. Okay, the first appointment we have for tonight is a public hearing, Verizon petition for pole attachment of a small cell communications equipment at 345 South Street, pole number 115. I hereby can call this public hearing, open this public hearing. So my guess is you're here to talk to us about the pole.
Yes,
So if you would, you can either go, that's up there, or you can use the microphone.
Mic if you want to stay where you are.
Okay, that's great. Sure, that's great, that's great.
Good evening. My name is Paula Foley. I am a network real estate consultant with Verizon Wireless. Thank you very much for having this public hearing tonight. There are a number of other individuals with Verizon that are participating by Zoom. May I introduce them so you'll know who they are?
Absolutely, please.
First of all, there's Stan Yusevich, who is with Verizon Government Affairs. Also is Sean Conway, who is Verizon's principal network real estate engineer for New England small cells. Also on the line is Louis Tevis, who is Verizon's RF engineer for this project. And also is Abdul Jammah with MD7 LLC. MD7 is the company that Verizon used as a site acquisition specialist for this particular location. So as a short summary, what we are proposing is a petition for permission to install small cell communications equipment on utility pole number 115 in the public right-of-way of South Street. This utility pole is jointly owned by Verizon and Eversource. And the purpose of the proposed facility is to provide additional service capacity and coverage in this particular area in Medfield. Our engineers have determined that this is one of the areas that needs additional coverage. The signal is not as optimal in this area as is needed for good wireless coverage, and that's why we're proposing to attach a small antenna. It's 35 inches in height and 14 inches in diameter onto the side of the pole at a height of about approximately 19 feet. And then lower down on the pole will be a radio unit and a electric meter. We found that the installation of small cells in this way will help add to the service capacity and coverage in specific areas without necessarily the need to create a large cell tower, for example, or having any unusual or obvious visual effects. So we're happy to answer any questions that you may have on this particular installation. I know this is our first proposal in front of the board, so thank you again for having us here.
what I'll suggest is we'll first go through us if we have any particular questions, then open it up for the public if anyone has comments, so.
Okay. Yeah, I'm curious. So is this the first unit like this that's being installed in the town of Medfield?
Yes, it is. At least the first Verizon, by Verizon unit. I don't know if other carriers have made proposals to you in the past.
I thought we did.
We don't know if AT&T or T-Mobile or anyone else has done one?
I have a recollection of another one previously, but I'm not really
I
firm on
remember
it.
one by the Citizens Bank on Main Street. That's not yours?
I seem to recall somebody else earlier coming in with one of these.
And then you mentioned that there's going to be a radio unit and an electric meter roughly about 9 feet off of the street.
The electric meter will be the lowest piece of equipment on the installation, and that will be approximately 9 feet above ground level. The antenna itself, however, will be up at almost 20 feet.
Is there a reason, pardon my ignorance, why that's all not up that high?
Well, it's just because of the utility pole and the other equipment that's on the pole. There are already electric wires on the pole and communications wires on the pole, and in order to accommodate the small cell equipment, it has to be in a vertical
Okay.
layout.
All right. So there's no chance of anybody being able to access and do any harm? It's high enough and...
No, it's definitely high enough
Okay.
to avoid any type of interference from passersby.
And then color-wise, and it should blend in, so it's not something that sticks out?
It should. All of the equipment is similar in size and shape and color to equipment that you probably already see on utility poles, such as transformers or junction boxes, things like that. Everything is a neutral gray color,
Okay.
which blends in with weathered wooden poles.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Pete?
Have you spoken to the homeowners that are in the area about your plans?
We
Have you-
haven't spoken with them personally, but we did send out notices of tonight's hearing, so they do have an opportunity to
Okay,
speak.
so they're aware of,
They are aware. As far as I know, no one has reached out to us.
in your notice, did you include the things that you've given to us, the engineering plans and that sort of thing?
No, but we did indicate that the plans are available here at the town hall for viewing.
So one of the things that always comes up with utilities is that as a municipality, we don't like you leaving around double poles, which you've done a lot. Is Verizon the one that's in charge of all the poles in Medfield?
Well, the poles in Medfield are jointly owned by Verizon and Eversource,
Okay,
so we have joint ownership responsibilities.
okay. So for instance, there's on 109, there's a pole right at Brook Street, I think, that's a double pole.
Okay.
That just is, it would be really nice if you guys would go around and finish the installation of the new pole and transfer everything over so that we don't get stuck with these double poles. Is that something that you can do?
Well, actually, there's someone on the line, Stan Yusevich, with Government Affairs, who is very knowledgeable on double pole issues. I don't know if he can be brought on. Perhaps he can add a little bit of information.
You should be able to speak.
Yeah, sure, Paul. As a matter of fact, there are a total of 16 in town at the moment, the majority of which happen to fall within, are being held up essentially by attachments by the town. I would be more than happy to send a listing of those poles and who needs to move so that the balance of those that are attached can move off to whomever you would like on the board or within the town.
Yes, that would be appreciated, thank you. Did you say that somebody is holding it up?
Yeah, I will tell you that it's a shared responsibility for everybody that attaches to the pole to move. It's just not a Verizon pole. There's access by many. And typically, the movement starts at the top, as you can imagine, with the electric company moving their facilities first because it's live power. Secondary electricity then comes on under that same framework. Then we get into streetlights, and then finally communications, which would include Comcast attachees like Verizon Wireless, and finally, Verizon is the last on the pole, last off, and takes the pole.
Well, we would certainly appreciate anything you can do to facilitate the completion of the transfer so we can eliminate as many of the double poles as possible. Thank you.
Well, I know in some cases the streetlights that are owned by the town that are holding up some poles. I think there are a couple that the fire department may have alarms on that need to be moved, but I would be glad to get that listing over to the town so that you'll see who needs to move.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Just one more question. I don't know if this is a typo, but when I was going through the general notes, and if I go to general notes where it says number 3, contractor to comply with all Holyoke requirements.
No,
So I'm like,
doesn't
okay, I'm
say
like, okay, is there some
Holyoke.
tie in here?
Oh, you're gonna embarrass me terribly.
It's in there a couple of times, and I was like, okay, I'm assuming this just might be like a standard section, and you go in and tweak it per town, but,
Yes, if it says Holyoke, that is an error.
Okay.
And I apologize for that. It should say Medfield.
Or we could look at Holyoke's requirements, because they may be tighter than ours.
Yeah,
wait,
it's the
You're-
standard.
You mean on the plans?
yeah.
Okay, yes, we will, I apologize for that. If you'd like, I can submit a revised set.
No, I just didn't know if there was some, I'm the newest selectman, so I'm like, I didn't know if there was some tie-in that I wasn't aware of, but
I think
just
for the
just a
record,
typo.
you should submit a revised set.
Okay, yes, we will do that. Again, I apologize for that typo. I am sorry I did not catch that.
And just as a follow-up on the telephone poles, I would appreciate, we would appreciate if you could give us that list. And in particular, the ones, if we have poles that, we're the ones that are holding up the removal of the double pole because of our lights or because of our fireboxes. I don't think we recognize that. There was Richard DeSorger, former selectman, probably 6 years ago, went on a major campaign to eliminate double poles, and a whole lot of them went away. It's almost incredible to me that 16 of them still have managed to evade that effort, because I thought we had it down to only a few. But certainly if we're the contributing cause to a delay there, then we'll want to take a quick look at that and make sure that we're not the limiting constraint on how fast we can get those taken care of. So that's
Well,
great.
I will also tell you that the majority of the poles that I'm looking at now had gone in this year or late last year. There are 2 that are lingering from 2016, and both are listed as Medford Fire Department fire alarm.
Okay. That might explain the few that Richard wasn't able to get rid of when he worked on it several years ago.
But I'll gladly get that into the town's hands.
I appreciate
and
that.
Also
Thank you.
provide my contact information so that we can better coordinate.
Okay. Other questions, Pete?
No, that's it for me.
So when I read the application, my first read was, this is great. Verizon wants to improve local cell service using small cell installation. I couldn't think of any bad thing about that. So that was my first read, just so you know where I started off. The only thing I've learned as a selectman is to always think of the bank shot. So my questions here, I'm trying to understand the extent to which, if this is in fact at least your first installation of this, and looking at the diagram, it's all on a pole. Certainly there's going to be more things hanging off the pole, so, which is fine. But it was actually one of the things that you had in your opening statements that said the law does not allow a town to prejudicially limit what one cell phone company can do versus another, which put me down the path of saying, so if this is Verizon's small cell for this area, unlike one of the right main cell towers, like on a water tower, where we don't care how many cell phone service companies want to be up there, we're probably not going to have multiple cell companies on the same poles. And so you may not be able to answer this, or perhaps I'm jumping at shadows, or maybe it's just, well, cross the bridge when we get to it. But is this a trend with cell phone service companies to move towards small cell in order to get away from large cell? And if, because where I'm going with that is, and if it is, can we then anticipate that virtually every cell phone service in town is going to want their own poles for small cell service, and probably not just in the one spot you've picked, but on a more comprehensive basis? It's kind of a question of trend in the industry.
Those are great questions. First of all, small cells are not going to replace cell towers at all. Small cells are designed to work in conjunction with cell towers and also rooftop units. You probably see some rooftop antennas as well. They do not replace either of those other types of antennas. Small cells are only for use in discrete areas where coverage needs a boost, so to speak. It's like a booster antenna. It will not replace cell towers at all. As far as other carriers coming to you for similar requests, it's quite possible if their networks are experiencing degraded service to the extent where a small cell would make sense. Everyone's network is different, so I really couldn't speak to that. To be honest, I don't think you will see a proliferation of small cells. It's just not efficient to create an entire network out of small cells.
Okay. That was my only question. So if there are any questions or comments from the public, we'll take them now. Yes.
Rich Ryder, 9 Pilgrim.
Where's the microphone?
The microphone.
There we go.
Rich Ryder, 9 Pilgrim Lane, Medfield. When are you planning to do this, and what is the range?
We are hoping to complete installation this year in 2022. The coverage area of the unit will be approximately a half of a mile. We do have a couple of engineers online, though. Perhaps they could speak a little more to that. I don't know, maybe Sean Conway?
Oh, we have Lewis on who might be able to speak that a little better,
Okay.
our RF engineer.
Hi, this is Louis Tevis, RF engineer with Verizon Wireless. And just to kind of augment a little bit of what Paula said, yeah, she is correct. You know, usually the coverage for these small cells can vary anywhere between a third to a half a mile, depending on terrain, depending on tree canopy, and things of that sort. In the summertime, that tends to be a little bit less because the trees are loaded with leaves, and leaves are made up mostly of water, and water kind of, you know, it makes the propagation of the radio waves be more lossy. Therefore, you know, in the summertime, it's most likely that the coverage will be less than in the wintertime. But that's generally the average, you know, coverage from one of these small cells. And being a third to maybe a half a mile, it really speaks to the fact that, you know, we are targeting specific areas to deploy these things, which are, you know, a lot of times areas that are challenged either by topography or, you know, a little gap in between two macro cells, which are the ones that you refer to as towers or rooftops. They usually are, they usually employ equipment that's, you know, emits more power and therefore has greater coverage. But sometimes for different reasons, they don't quite get to a specific area that needs to be addressed. And we use these as a way to overcome that situation. I don't know if that answered your question.
Yes, it did. If I could ask a follow-up, do you have a map that shows what the anticipated benefit will be? I'm 200 yards up the road. We have a lot of trees. I mean, have you done a study? Have you come out and said these parts of town will benefit?
Provide that as, you know, if that's necessary.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the answer.
Said he would supply it
Yeah,
if necessary.
Yeah, we can certainly provide you with some additional information. If you want to contact me, I can make sure that Louis gets some information to you.
On the surface, though, if the target is a half mile and you're 200 yards up, you're less than a quarter mile up, so I'd be optimistic if I were you, as long as you have Verizon service.
I'm remaining
I would
optimistic,
agree with
but if
that.
you've ever
200
been to
yards
my
is a-
house
is a-
and tried
is
to
a-
get a
is a-
signal,
Is a
Okay.
stone's throw, so
we've been waiting for
I
15
would
years for
expect to
this.
have some good improvement.
I'm sorry, we had another conversation. Could you repeat that? Louis?
What I was saying is you being 200 yards away from the location, I would expect to see some improvement there. 200 yards is really, quite close, so you would be kind of in the hotter zone in terms of what, the coverage that this will provide. Obviously, as you move further away, the signal gets weaker, so being that close, it would be to your benefit.
So Rich, once the installation is in, if that doesn't happen, would you let us know?
Should I call you directly?
Yeah, you can call us directly, yeah.
Let us know how much your bill goes up too, with the improved service.
Okay, are there any other comments from the public here? Anyone we're actually losing attendees, so I guess, there is a hand up from Suze, S-U-Z? Suz, if,
Yeah, they should be able to speak now.
Yep.
you have to take your microphone off mute though, Susan. There you go.
Okay.
There we are.
Okay. Yes, I have my name is Mike Petoniak at 338 South Street. I have a question. Tonight you said, and in the notice I received, it lists pole 115 at 345 South Street. That's not correct. Pole 115 is near 335. So, are you aware of that? And maybe somebody could double check that, because I looked at the pole and it's clearly labeled 115 at address 335.
Yes, you are correct. Pole 115 is between, I believe it's 337 and 331. However, if you noticed in the notice and in our application, we said the utility pole was near the property of 345. And we used that address because that is the closest intersection. And we thought we would be able to provide notice to the greater number of people if we used that as our notification address. But we just say near 345. We don't say at 345.
To confirm for the record, the poll number is correct?
The poll number is correct, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and Ed, before you get off, I assume if that is in fact the pole, there's no concerns that you have, given your close proximity, that works just fine from your standpoint, is that correct?
Well, I frankly was over at Town Hall last week and questioned someone at your office. He said to me that this antenna is only for 5G service.
No, it's
Is that
not.
correct?
No, that's not correct. It's a 4G antenna.
Is it for regular cell phone then service?
It is for regular cell phone service.
Okay. Okay, thanks for clarifying that. Thank you.
Sounds like we're good there, okay. Glad I asked the question. Are there any other comments? I don't think I see anyone else. Any further comments from
No,
either of you? Are we
No.
ready for
Move to close the hearing then.
Yeah, that's right, I do. I have to close the public hearing. I'm officially closing the public hearing, hearing no further comments. And at this point, we'll entertain a motion to approve the application.
I would move to approve the Verizon petition for pole attachment of a small cell communications equipment at or near 345 South Street on pole number 115, as set forth in the hearing information.
I second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And Rich, let us know how much better your service is.
When will we find out when it goes in?
Before the end of the year, so give them to January.
And the leaves will be down, so it'll even be better.
Yes, Mark.
So just to follow up on the issue you raised during the hearing itself, if you've got, they own or control these poles, so they can go on existing poles. Where it becomes more complicated is if somebody comes in that does not own or control poles in the right-of-way and wants to
Right,
install something.
yeah,
That's potentially a problem.
right.
But, so we'll just have to wait and see how it plays out.
Yeah, given the answer that this is not a preferred method for providing broad service, that was reassuring. I just have learned to be.
The FCC did a pretty good job of emasculating local control
Right.
this last round. So
But it sounded like we should be thinking about some,
we have a draft set of regs we're
okay,
reviewing.
good.
I mean, at the very least, to me, it sounded like
Basically
this
go
is
to
something to improve
aesthetics.
service for people that are.
Aesthetics and locations and preferred locations, we have a pretty good model that I'm working with Brittany on.
And David Maxim, I bet.
Not so much, but he'll review it.
Okay.
Okay, our next item is Director of Public Works Maurice Goulet to request the Board of Selectmen first to vote to accept bid awards for Southeastern Regional Services Group FY23 water and sewer treatment chemicals, FY23 paper contract, FY23 DPW supplies, and authorize Director of Public Works Maurice Goulet to execute the contracts. Any questions, Eileen?
No, I read through it. It makes sense. I mean, if you have any insight you want to share, but I mean, it looks pretty straightforward.
Well, the price is absolutely, we anticipated increases in costs this year, and we are getting the increase in cost. But overall, this is a 26-town consortium that we're involved with. We do get the lowest prices. If we have an issue with one of the contractors, we have 26 towns that can comment on that, and we can screen those contractors. So we feel comfortable with these, even though the prices are higher than last year.
That's life in 2022, right?
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
Pete, did you have any questions?
I don't know. I think this is just an excellent consortium that Mo brought to us from Easton, I think.
We were part of it in Easton as well, yeah.
Yeah.
So Mo, it wouldn't be a selectmen's meeting without me having any questions at all for you. This is one I bet you didn't.
Still have other items if you want.
This is the best one. This one I really like. You probably didn't anticipate this question. On the paper contract, you have 21 boxes or cases of 20-pound white 8.5 by 11 letter paper at $48.80. And 2 lines down, you have 31 cases of 20-pound white 8.5 by 11 letter recycled at $50.80. And so I spent at least 2 minutes this afternoon saying, now why did Mo buy 31 cases of the more expensive recycled paper and only 21 of the regular new stuff?
Christine, could you help me out with that?
We do not, we only
You're
buy
gonna call a friend, are you? Okay.
we only buy recycled paper. They were anticipating, these numbers are estimated quantities of what we would use in the past. There may have been a department or two that squeaked by buying non-recycled paper, but we have a buy recycled policy and we only buy recycled paper.
So that's what I was trying to figure out. I said, well, if they were trying to be environmentally conscious, it should have all been recycled
It's
paper.
true.
And if they're trying to be as cheap as possible, it should have all been the new stuff. But this is just a measure of incongruities across town departments. Okay.
And even though I brought the Sursage group over to the town of Medfield, I don't get involved with every part of it.
I came up with that question moment. I said, there's no way he knows this.
So you only have 2 lifetimes.
Okay. If there are no questions, take a
Pretty
motion.
straightforward.
I move that we accept the bid awards for Southeastern Regional Services Group FY '23 Water and Sewer, no.
Yeah.
Is it all of these?
Yep,
Yeah.
it's all of them.
Water Sewer Treatment Chemicals FY paper contract, FY '23 paper contract, FY '23 DPW supplies, and authorized Director of Public Works Maurice Goulet to execute the contracts.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye, aye.
Opposed? Good. That passes. Let's move on to the complete streets.
So with the complete streets, the next two, one is to agree, to vote to grant the money to get to the prioritization plan, and the other one is to have the contract approved for the contractor to do the prioritization plan. Basically, with complete streets, we are at Tier 2, they call it. We've done the complete streets policy that was approved with a score of 87, which is a high score for the policy. Now they are giving us $38,000 to create a prioritization plan. And after that is complete, the projects that come from this plan would be approved, and we would be able to get funding right away for it. We're hoping that we could even get, if we get this done quick enough by the end of the year, we might be able to be getting funding for the next construction season.
So can you give me an example of, like, would you anticipate a certain thing to come up out of this? Just
So the prioritization plan is, so we've done a sidewalk, curb ramp, transition plan. Basically, it shows all the deficiencies we have, ADA compliance issues, connectivity in town, where we should be concentrating on getting mobility for our residents, whether it's pedestrian. The number one concern is safety. Then it's pedestrian and bike accommodations. So that's what the prioritization plan does. It pulls together different projects from around the town. It doesn't mean that every roadway is going to get bike accommodations or sidewalks, but it brings in all the most important projects from the town and then prioritizes it according to what the needs are. And this sidewalk plan that we have in place will help to develop this, but that's not what's going to drive the whole. It's going to be, we're going to have a public hearing for public comment as well, so there'll be a lot of different people involved.
So it'd be like, I'll just give, for example, you're going up 109 right now, you leave town and you're heading towards Shaw's. You guys just cleaned up some of the sidewalks there on 109, they look great. But then as you get up towards Pound Street, it stops.
Correct.
So in theory, a citizen could walk from uptown to Shaw's, where hopefully there'll be a Chipotle down the road. Would this project be one that would say, we would prioritize that as a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? And
You could use that in this.
Okay.
We are also looking at the state, the TIP projects. We're putting Main Street on a TIP project that would
Oh, okay.
include bike accommodations and sidewalk, pedestrian access, all the way up to at least to Hartford Street.
And then something like either widening or putting sidewalks in a road like Phillip and Nebo, which is really narrow, would that be something that we'd be looking
We
at
would
in the
have
study,
to
or
look
different?
at that and see if it's feasible, to see if it's, first of a safety factor. Is
Sure.
it safe to do that? Do we have enough right-of-way? Do we have to take land? Do we have to do things out of the ordinary to get that in there? And what is it going to connect to?
Okay.
So all those aspects will be looked into when we look at the whole town as a whole.
And I think if I read it correctly, they'll come back with at least 15, they'll have.
Correct.
Okay.
Pete?
Could you send us a copy of that prioritization plan?
The sidewalk
Sidewalks.
transition plan that we have in place
Yep,
right now,
yep.
I can send you something for
Yep,
that.
thank you.
sure.
And Eileen's question about the sidewalks up on 109 going towards Shaw's reminded me that in one place, I just noticed, it looks like the asphalt is really deep. It goes over a little bit of a hill in front of a stone wall. Is that just extra asphalt? I mean, it looks like it's 8 inches of asphalt, but I can't imagine you would have.
I don't believe it's 8 inches of asphalt. There might be a
Yeah, it's-
contributing factor that's
Yeah,
underneath
it's
there.
probably, all right.
No, I walked Rooney, I'll tell you what that is. Is that was starting, I have a sense what your guys did there, is that was starting to erode a little?
So they
So
put
by doing what
asphalt
they
over-
did, I think that would reinforced it some.
Yeah.
Now, whether that's the
Just to
ideal way
hold
to solve
the
it, but
I
earth
thought
back.
that was probably
Yeah.
the
but
issue.
that's part of my walking track. I'm not at the state hospital.
I guess that's it for me then.
Okay. And I guess we can talk about, right now, we're talking about the grant,
Yes.
so I guess maybe we just talk about that, and then we can talk about the contract.
Okay.
I guess the only question I had on the grant, it sounds, from everything I've seen you do so far, it sounds like this is something that will remain under the control of the town in terms of selecting what things we do. So we'll have help figuring out how to put the priorities together,
So,
but,
so Beta Group will guide us through this process, but it's the town's decision on prioritizing the projects or developing the projects that
Okay.
we feel as a town that are the
Okay.
most.
okay,
Yeah.
okay. And if there are no other questions,
I look forward to the report.
entertain a motion.
I would move to accept the grant from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts in the amount of $38,000 for a complete streets prioritization plan and authorize town administrator to execute the state contract documents.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye, aye.
Opposed? Okay, that passes. And then talk a little about the contract.
Sure. So we've contracted with Beta Group. They've done our sidewalk, curb ramp, ADA compliance transition plan. So it falls right into place in line with the complete streets as well. So it's the $38,000 coming from the state. It's kind of a standard fee that for these plans, every community gets the $38,000 once they get the policy passed, as long as the town agrees to take on the grant. So Beta Group will be working with us if the contract's approved to get this prioritization plan done by the end of the year. We'd have a public informational meeting. We would submit it to the state for approval, and then we would be eligible for up to $400,000 in construction costs for each project, if we're accepted. But being a newbie in the Complete Streets program, I believe that we would be able to get that $400,000 or whatever our project costs right up front. I think we'll be one of the first ones to get that.
Right? Good. Questions?
I didn't have any on the bid contract.
Pete?
No questions.
And I have a few questions,
Sure.
but it's more just to understand the contracting dynamics. It's not really, they're not loaded questions.
Okay.
Having worked with various contracts involving governments over my career and understanding how certain things work, there was a very small thing that I picked up on the Beta contract, which is at the very start. It says, whereas the town solicited submission of proposal for engineering consulting services for the Department of Public Works, that suggested to me this was a sole source selection.
Correct.
So, and I think, is Beta, this is all tied into MAPC as well, or, like, a lot of the MAPC, there's no
No.
connection there, because a lot of the MAPC work we get is kind of like, it's almost like internally marketed to get the funding from the state to pay for the MAPC consultants to help us do what we want to do, and I'm not commenting good, bad, or indifferent on this, because they've done work for us already, and it makes sense, but I was
For
just curious
professional
about how
engineering
that came about.
services,
Yeah.
for professional engineering services, we can solicit what companies that we would like to work with for these projects.
And
It's
so
ex-
in
it's
this
exempt
case,
from
we
procurement.
select
It's
just the
exempt
single
from
one.
It's exempt from procurement,
It's-
engineering.
Okay, okay. And so our decision to do that, is that because they've already been doing, this is a logical follow-on piece
Correct.
of work? Okay, I just wanted to.
It's right up their alley, and they're,
Yeah,
the
okay.
transportation engineers, that they have a good rapport to
Yeah,
take care of projects like this.
okay, I got it. I just wanted to understand the dynamics.
Yep.
I'm good, no.
No further questions, so, motion?
Move to approve a contract with Beta Group, Inc. for a complete streets prioritization plan.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Thanks.
All right.
Thank you very much.
All right, thanks, Mo.
Well, before you go,
Yes.
can, I had that email that I had forwarded to you from Sharon Lowenthal about she was getting angry and outraged about seeing people watering in violation of the watering ban. Do you guys have any answers for Sharon?
Well, I did have our water.
Yeah, I'm gonna interrupt you for 1 second. I think Mo can handle a response to that email, but I'm concerned if we're gonna talk about a response to how we're gonna handle violations, it needs to be a separate item on the agenda.
Okay.
Just, we had some criticism recently that we had discussed something at length that was not on the agenda, and so I just wanna.
All right, well, that'd be a good
But
agenda item then.
Mo and I talked about it, and Mo will respond to that email, but I think
Absolutely.
we can include it and have you back on August 2nd.
Okay. And we did put some signs out, the old signs back out on the road right now to notify people.
Yeah,
so-
yeah, she was right, those old signs are much more visible.
But we're gonna be working on that, and I'll explain that.
Don't cut.
You can meet Mo in the elevator on the way down.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mo.
Have a
Thanks,
good one.
Mo.
All right, the next item we have is a public hearing for the following solicitor license application. Power Home Remodeling, Devin Elwood, Sam Krajewski, and Joe Mascariello. And it just happened to be that because we were doing meeting minutes for tonight, I recognized the Power Home Remodeling came to us in March with 4 people, but only 3 this time, but I did at least recognize at least, I think, 1 or 2 for sure, just out of memory, so.
And I just promoted, Devin is here at the meeting to speak.
Okay, I hereby declare the public hearing is open. And Devin, why don't you take it away?
Hey guys, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Awesome. So yeah, it's just me right now. A couple of the buddies got tied up. I'm not sure who is Gus Murphy on the call.
That's me. Yep,
Oh.
I'm sitting in the middle on the table here.
Okay. So yeah, to be honest, guys, this is my first time doing this. I just got promoted to leader at the company. I'm not sure really how it works or if I was supposed to have a speech prepared. But pretty much what we're looking to do here at Power Home Remodeling is knock on doors, solicit, and, you know, old windows, old siding, old roofing. Pretty much just leave free estimates for homeowners to upgrade their houses and make them look nicer.
And Devin, you were one of the ones that was involved back in March? Now, and really, I'm asking, you're familiar with Medfield?
I wasn't personally in Medfield. I was in a couple different towns last quarter, but every quarter we'll switch teams and we'll go to different towns to solicit.
Okay.
So right now we're working in South Weymouth. We submitted applications for Dedham, and a few other towns as well.
Okay.
How long do they want to be?
Yeah, can you, let me make sure it's not already in here somewhere. We're curious about the period of time. It looks like it's July 1st to September 30th, so a 3-month period. And do you have down here anywhere what days of the week and what hours of the day you anticipate you'll
Yeah, so the
be?
duration of time, so it's just, we work by quarters, so it would be so we got all of July, August, and September.
Yeah,
And we do that from 12 to 6 p.m., Monday through Friday.
okay. Nothing on the weekends?
Oh, sorry, and Saturdays 11 to 3.
Good thing I asked.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
It's every other Saturday, so I just slipped my mind.
Yep, okay. That sounds, yep, Mark?
Do you need that 3-month period?
No, so like I said, so right now we're in South Weymouth. There's no really telling how long we'll be here. It just depends on how long we're in the map. So I think I have like 30 more shifts in South Weymouth, but I mean, it could be Medfield that we move to next. It could be Dedham.
So when you actually move to a town, how much time do you need?
So typically we like to use up most of the map. So it would be all of Medfield. But, you know, let's say if we moved in like towards the end of October, we probably wouldn't hit all of the map.
Maybe we could try asking the question a different way. You've
Yeah.
asked for a 3-month period. And it sounds like that 3-month period is because somewhere in that 3 months is when you anticipate getting to Medfield.
Right.
If you got to Medfield and completed the map of Medfield, how much, as a
How many
practical matter,
days?
how long would it take you probably to work your way through Medfield?
So if we started in Medfield, it would probably take us about a month.
About a month, okay, so somewhere over the summer months, you anticipate being in Medfield for about a month is how that'll work out. Okay.
Right,
And
right.
do you tend to canvass in one area? So you don't spread out, you kind of take blocks of the town with your team?
Yeah, so the way they have us do it, they'll send us the map, and it's my responsibility to just map off where we're gonna be. And the way they taught us how to do it is to work in a circle around the map, just to keep everything organized, and so we'll be in the same location as the previous day.
And then you'll work with our police department, you'll notify them where you're gonna be, so in case someone
We
should
check
call.
in every morning, yep.
Okay.
And I think from having just read the meeting minutes from last March, at least some of you, I think, already had a background check.
I believe Sam Krajewski might have been one of the ones that had his background check. He was on Jace's team. You might have his applications as well.
Yeah, so I think Mark, everybody needs a background check?
Should have been done already.
Yeah, they've already been done.
It's already
All
been
set.
done,
Yep,
okay.
they're
You
ready.
may not have known it, but you've already passed the background check apparently, so.
Okay,
That's
awesome.
Always reassuring to hear that. Okay, are there any questions from the public?
I don't see any.
Okay, I don't see any, so I guess we can entertain a motion.
What were the
Declare
hours,
it-
Monday through Friday again?
12 to 6.
12 to 6?
And Saturdays 11 to 3.
So I would move that we,
Close the
grant,
hearing first.
Oh, thank you. I hereby close the public hearing. Thank you, Mark.
so do we want to limit the time? They're going to be a month. Do we just want to
Because, I mean,
No, 'cause they
they're
don't
going to be
know.
here a month, so in.
leave it open for
Yeah,
them for
'cause
the
they
3
don't know
months?
exactly when they're going to start,
Yeah.
but it's
So
going
you
to
All
be
right.
here
back
for about a month.
every X number of weeks, just give them that window.
Right.
So I would move that we grant a solicitor license app to Power Home Remodeling, the 3 individuals that are in the materials, to solicit on Monday through Friday, 12 to 6, Saturdays, 11 to 3. And I guess that's it.
Second?
Between August, between
Oh,
July.
July 1 and September 30. Thank you, Mark.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
All right. Devin,
You're all
a
set,
good-
Devin?
All right, thank you so much, guys.
Sure.
Thanks, have a
Yep.
good night.
Have a good night. All right, the next item, we probably discuss items 4 and 5 here, but we are due to provide Christine with her annual performance evaluation now that the fiscal year has ended. So we were going to have a general discussion tonight about how that evaluation, how we want to think about doing that evaluation, and then at least start to begin the discussion of what the FY '23 goals that we'd like to see Christine have. So, I don't know, Christine, do you want to start, or, yeah?
Okay,
we'll just-
I'll take one of these and pass them down. So this is an update. This document will show the goals that were agreed to last July of 2021. And then there's a summary of where we are in terms of meeting those goals. Unfortunately, there's a couple of them that are still in process. Given some of the larger projects that occurred this year that we did not anticipate, some of those we did not complete, but the majority have been completed. And that's for your review.
Nice going.
Thank you. Well, I can't take all the credit. I have an incredible team with Nick, and now the addition of Brittany to my team, in addition to the financial team, and honestly, all of the employees of the town, which helped to make all of these goals
So I
come
can
to
tell you, it
fruition.
was a delight to get a memo from Brittany today.
So what Christine's really saying is for FY '23, because she has a team, and including a new one with Brittany, we can actually be more aggressive about it.
She can do more, yeah.
So just to supplement that a little bit, primarily for your benefit, probably, Eileen, in the employment contract that we have with Christine, the provisions around the performance evaluations that she'll be evaluated each year and provided in the contract, her performance evaluation will be based on her accomplishment of the goals. So these goals were specified for FY '22, and these are the goals. In fact, they've been on the website for anybody who wants to see what they are. It's just that Christine's appended her own self-assessment for these goals, and I think we all should take a look at them and see if we agree with that. From a monetary standpoint, Christine is eligible for a $10,000 bonus on top of her salary. That bonus is, as it states in the employment contract, is based directly upon the extent to which she accomplished the goals. So this is more than just a personal feedback issue. This actually, we have a decision to make around what we would like to grant as a bonus out of that up to $10,000 pot. So that's the other administrative thing to keep in mind.
Yeah.
One other thing I was going to say now, I forget what it was. I guess that's it. I think probably the third thing was the FY '23 goals that we need to think about. So basically, I would suggest on this part that we each take this. Oh, I know what the other thing was. We each take this, review what Christine said, come to your own conclusions about these particular goals. I did ask Christine to give us a list of other important things that came up this year that she responded to that I think we at least should consider.
Absolutely.
Recognizing her performance and giving her credit for doing it. If the only thing that matters, at least from an administrative standpoint, is some goals that we happen to come up with at the beginning of a fiscal year, then we move down a very bureaucratic path around what we're formally asking for performance. So I think in addition to whatever's here, I know it'll help me in my evaluation to know what those other things were that were significant.
Good
I think
idea.
Christine can do it. I think if she needed help, we could probably help her. But there are obviously some things that have come up this year that we didn't know were coming at the beginning of the fiscal year that are significant and that we are quite happy she put a priority on over maybe some of the specific things that didn't get completed here.
Completely agree.
The other thing mechanically, and Mark, you can weigh in on this if you want, but so the thing that's the basis of the evaluation is the accomplishment of the goals. We each individually can do that evaluation. That evaluation can then, I'm going to suggest, unless either of you, because I already talked to Christine and I think she's okay with this, you can send me your individual evaluations. I will compile that evaluation into a consensus, a combination of the three, which then becomes a public document that then becomes the basis of our performance evaluation with Christine. Mark, I see you nodding your head no, and I believe that is consistent with exactly what we heard from our other council. So what's the issue?
What's consistent?
I thought you were saying no. What I'm
I was
saying is,
saying no.
on what basis and what is it you're saying no to?
If you're involved in the compilation, it'll be treated as a deliberation. You need somebody neutral to compile the three. You could have Brittany do it, you could have your attorney do it, you can't do it.
That makes sense.
Okay.
So I would like to check with that because.
No question about it.
Well, I would like to check with that, because we have a lawyer in this area who I think said something different, Mark. And the point is, I'm not deliberating with anyone, I am just compiling. But I understand the point you're making.
No, I read her, if you're talking about
Attorney Kenny.
Attorney Kenny's memorandum, I've reviewed that, and that part's all consistent. What she then indicated was, once it was, you had the compilation document, you could circulate that.
What she said was, you can send them to me and I can compile them,
Right.
although there are some towns that have the chair of the Board of Selectmen do it. That's what's in the memo. Now, I don't,
We can
I
confirm with
don't
her.
care because I understand the sensitivity. I think it's absurd, but I understand that absurd things happen in the law. So I'm not totally discounting your point, Mark. If that were the case, I don't think it's appropriate for a subordinate town employee to compile a result. Therefore, I would say we probably would have to go with, I mean, I would say probably
that's
Jamie
not-
would be the
I
logical
said was
person. So
consistent, right?
if that's in fact
Wow,
an
place-
ultimate determination.
Yeah, in all due respect, I don't see the language in her memo that you're referring to, Gus. I see,
Okay. I'll-
I
I'll-
see language that's consistent with what I just said to you.
Okay. Well, we could, quite aside, I will double check to make sure I know what I'm talking about there, and that's fair. But if that in fact is, there's a reason why we have to do that, and it's not a disputed point, I'm not burning with desire to take on the administrative task of compiling 3 separate assessments. But I don't think it should go to a subordinate employee, so that kind of limits what we would do. Unless, maybe we could get the superintendent to do it, but.
I'm sure Jeff would love to do that. I get to do his.
Okay, so at this stage, based on what Mark is saying here, I'm assuming the process probably will be that it gets sent to Jamie to compile. That compilation then becomes the basis of a public document that we provide in the public meeting where we jointly, as a Board of Selectmen, provide feedback. That does not preclude any one of us to provide feedback to Christine individually, but that is not any part of the formal evaluation that we provide to Christine. Okay. We're good there?
Yeah, I don't know if everyone's seen the memorandum from Attorney Kenny.
No, I was
All
gonna
right,
ask it to
so-
get circulated.
So the other caveat that you really don't have to worry about right now, but you will eventually, is your individual evaluations, if you follow the process as the chair has explained it, do not become public documents. However, if you get into a public hearing and you start referencing your individual evaluations, they then do become public documents. So you have to be very cautious how you proceed.
Part of what made this clear for me was the employment contract, because the employment contract is very specific. It says the evaluation and the bonus distribution are a function of the achievement of the goals that have been set out. So anything else that you provide by way of performance feedback to Christine, I mean, in any given day of the week, if something didn't go well, I would sit down with Christine and go, hey, that meeting wasn't very, so I just view what we're talking about here by way of performance feedback as not a formal component of the annual performance review cycle. It's more, anytime you have someone working for you, you probably should be somewhat disciplined around thoughtfully providing feedback on their performance and sharing your ideas on how it could be better in whatever form, frequency, and scope you see fit for somebody who's effectively working for you. So that's,
So in my corporate world, we did this at least 6 months, if not once a quarter, to check in. So I kind of feel like we do that almost on a weekly basis, right? So it's not like I don't see you, and I'm not communicating with you. And hopefully I can say what I'm about to say, and it's not but like, when I read the goals, and I saw that, like, I know what Nick and the team, and Christine, Nick, and the team, with everything with State Hospital, and everything that's going on with the negotiations. I mean, there's so much going on above and beyond.
that's why
I'd
we
like to
asked
think
for
that
list.
can, there's, if you see in progress, well, if she focused on this to check the box and push some of the other things that were wildly important to the town to the side, that would to me say, okay, that she didn't prioritize. She totally prioritized what was important to the town.
So at this point, and Mark, you can check me if I'm characterizing this wrong again, at this point, that particular view that you have is a view you have every right as an individual selectman to have as you do your individual assessment.
Okay.
And I have that same kind of a right to take into account those things, as does Pete. Those all become 3 individual assessments that will feed in at this point, sounds like, to Jamie, who will then compile that, and what we will collectively see is the compilation of whatever Jamie determined the integration of those 3 inputs should look like. And the only one we'll know for sure was our own component to that.
And I would And is that what's then going to support what we then support for the bonus?
Correct.
Okay.
The irony being that as far as negotiations with her, that's a permissible topic for executive session, so.
I still maintain that someone's personal performance records are, according to federal law, private. So there's a piece of this between, and I don't think, last time I checked, the state can override federal law. But I don't want to fight about that one, because I think we can get around this without having to do that, simply by paying attention to what the employment contract said, following the process, which actually, as long as that process is focused on that particular thing as the scope and basis for a performance evaluation, the administrative compilation, I am confident, will be competently handled by either of the candidates who potentially could do it. So,
But here's a silly, but then, whereas if you were going to do it as chair, you're doing it without a cost to the town. If we have Jamie do it, does that actually cost the town to?
there's a lot of lawyers in the legislature, I know.
It's kind of silly.
This is the courts that came up with this.
Yeah. It's,
To answer your question, yes.
Okay.
So in the past, I know that we've used, we've had matrices that we've used to sort of be evaluating the same set of things. You're thinking that we'll just work off of the goal sheet this time instead of having a,
so Mark, let me ask you a question. I have taken the goals, I've mapped them onto a spreadsheet, and I've already taken my first pass at that assessment. Is there any problem with me providing Eileen and Pete a completely clean spreadsheet that has these goals? So should they want to have a matrix to take those goals and do whatever they want with, I will save them the hour and a half I took trying to copy in the text from a PDF file to a Word document and then onto an Excel spreadsheet with separate cells. That would be sharing my methodology, but not
Right.
my content.
Well, no, it does, because you've made a determination as to what should be in that matrix, and so
Okay, so the answer is.
unfortunately, the answer is,
Okay.
So what I find
I tried.
interesting in this is, I've worked with Christine from the end of March until now, right? And Mike was from all the way until, so I find it interesting that I don't get some of the insight from the two of you, because a lot of these goals were worked on for 9 months that I wasn't around. And so I certainly have seen firsthand when I read through the goals, but I find it interesting that I can't see more, because there's things you could bring to light that.
Probably overestimating how much Pete and I can offer.
But you understand,
You're
I
right,
mean,
you're right,
it's-
you're right,
We can't tap into Mike and say, Mike, all right,
right. Yeah, fair point. It's,
well, you probably could, he's not on the board anymore, and
Yeah.
if he provided any,
actually, yeah.
you could have a conversation with him without violating anything.
Yeah, could we have Mike compile it? That would be interesting.
I don't know the answer to that.
I'm just the messenger
No,
here,
I
I'm fighting
understand.
this battle.
And given the nature of this evaluation, given the precision of the contract, I don't think you and I need to go down that path again anyway, Mark. So I think we can make this work. Jamie is certainly competent to do a compilation. And
To save you an hour and a half worth of work, I will send this to you in Word format so that you can. cut
oh,
and
because it's a
paste
PDF,
it.
okay, yeah, that'd be good.
So I will send that all out to you electronically.
too late to do me any good,
Sorry
but
about
okay.
Chris, could you circulate too the contract, and just so I don't have to go looking for it, and,
Yes,
and the Jamie's memo too, please?
absolutely.
Thank you.
Yep, I'll send that out now. Now, do you want to move on to fiscal year?
Yeah, just
23.
one
Okay.
point
Yep.
about Jamie's memo, though. Jamie proposed some things that we're not doing. So Jamie's memo is not laying out our process, to be clear. What we just talked about here is the process that we're following. It's not contradictory, but it's not Jamie's memo.
Okay.
Okay. In terms of fiscal year '23, let me hand those out to you. So I started to prepare some goals for fiscal year '23. The Board of Selectmen have not set their goals for fiscal year '23. We try to set them on an annual basis, so I did not want to fully populate these not knowing what the board's goals were, because my goals as town administrator should be reflective of what the board is trying to achieve as well. So these are just some initial ones. Obviously, we are carrying forward a few of the ones that we did not completely finish that we'd like to see brought to closure. So if you have comments, edits, please feel free to let me know, and then if we want to address that on the August 2nd meeting, we can talk more about what your goals will be and what goals you would like to see added to this.
So for sure, I think we should have an agenda item on the 2nd of August, which is a discussion among the three of us about what we think the goal should be.
Okay, that's fair.
That's over and above, but this is
Yep.
probably, your thoughts are helpful, especially for Eileen, and in fairness, I haven't even kicked back to blow smoke rings in the air about what specific goals we should have, looking at it from a Board of Selectmen standpoint.
Chris, thank you for doing the draft goals.
Thank you.
Okay, is there anything else on items 4 and 5? So, that's a good start.
Actually, I just want to go back just to confirm, because I will need to work with Jamie and get her all of the information. So you are going to take this up, you'd like to have her compilation complete by August 2nd and have that as an agenda item on August 2nd as well? Just want you to set some internal deadlines so that you can finish your information and get it to her.
I actually think, well, this is an open discussion, so what do you think?
So we'll see, we'll at least be able to read her compilation, so it's being, okay, let me back up. I'm gonna give her a document. He's gonna give her a document. They're gonna give a document. They're just basically be stapled together. There'll be no consistent flow of.
No, I think it's not just a collection.
She's gonna take the three of them and put them into a summary document.
Oh, good, all
Yeah.
right, so, all right.
So the tricky part about that is she's going to get 3 documents that we have absolutely no clue how each one of us is formatting and structuring our own. It's then going to go into her, and in a black box will be turned into a summary, which we can at least look for our own points, and at least we'll have some points that confuse us that are in there that we don't have any idea why they're there, perhaps. And then from that, we will be having a conversation with Christine. So I don't think that conversation with you occurs till the 30th. I think the compilation comes to us, and we can then have the beginnings of a discussion around what that compilation says.
And
But-
is there any opportunity to do that in executive session when we're
No.
talking about it? No? But not even having Christine in it, that's a conversation?
No,
and you could be-
especially that.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's part of the
Specifically
court's desire to
excludes
make sure the
professional,
confusion of selectmen is on full display at
the
all public
grounds for
meetings.
executive session specifically excludes professional competence.
And so, what you were referring to earlier with doing some form of a spreadsheet/template keeps it a little bit more consistent so that we keep our train of thoughts.
We wouldn't want to do that.
Well, and that's what we've done before, is we've had a matrix that we've worked off.
Well,
of.
you'd have to
Beth didn't want to do that
You'd
this
have
time.
to spread the meetings out and bring something here that you could share and reach consensus on what the format should look like, and then go from there. You can do that.
I mean, the MMA has all kinds of prototypes for doing this.
Well, the way to do it based on the contract is the goals. So whatever MMA's prototypes are, it probably isn't going to help, because most of the prototypes are sort of coming out of the corporate world, where you're looking at major qualities or skill areas as opposed to what this is set up to be,
So
which is the
I guess the
competence.
one thing that you would get out of all of us working off of the same matrix is that we would be addressing the same topics.
Absolutely.
Whereas this is very free-form,
Absolutely, right.
so.
Well, if I hear you correctly, Gus, and it's pretty simple, if I read through what our goals are, I look at what Christine has summarized, and then I agree, disagree, or add, I mean, so that, there is format. I shouldn't say, we
You
do
can
have
the
a
agree
format.
among
basic-
yourselves right now that that's how you want to proceed.
I think it
And
can
Well, I
each,
mean,
and then each stay within that context as you prepare your individual
Okay.
analysis. Because you're
But
in
the
open
method
session,
you
right?
use to do it will be up to you on how you, I mean, I think you're right. That's the point I've been trying to make, is the structure for the evaluation based on the employment contract itself is around the accomplishment of these goals. So by definition, your assessment should reflect something of the structure of the goals. But how you actually come to an evaluation of that structure is, everybody's on their own.
So this is a relatively simple arrangement here in Medfield compared to a whole lot of other communities. It's the exception to the rule right now because the town administrator really doesn't have any real legal authority under the charter. She basically is primarily responsible with carrying out your determinations. You're the, under the charter, the ones with authority, as opposed to municipalities who have a bona fide town administrator who has independent legal authority, hiring and firing, for instance, and other things where it gets way more complicated when you go to analyze their performance. In this case, you know, it's an interrelationship, but largely emanates from you to her. I mean, we got sloppy back during Mike's tenure because the select board back then was content to kind of sit back and let him run the show, but
He never got a review.
he was very successful at delaying those.
For how many years?
Longest standing.
That's crazy. I'm sorry. That's
But anyway,
crazy.
but, you know, if you actually
Christine, I
literally
guess
look
that
at the
means you're
legal
not gonna be able to
relationship,
Readopt Mike's custom performance evaluations. At least as long as Eileen's here.
Well, but it doesn't help you. We had this
I know.
discussion when
We
we
have,
first met,
yes,
right? That, like,
yes.
it's important, you know, you're professional, and to be able to get the right guidance to, everyone wants to improve, no one just wants to hit a plateau. So it's unfortunate that all those years that was never done. I think it's a really important role.
Totally agree with you.
It actually was done at times, but Mike was not out front leading it to be done. It's like we didn't have goals either in those days. The select board didn't have goals, Mike didn't have goals for the most part, but we did ask him to start doing that sort of stuff.
Speaking of, to your point, Pete, you just reminded me of something. So we actually have two sets of goals as selectmen we should think about. One is, if you would, that we have town goals that exist. Those are long range. They've been the same for the 5 years plus that I've been 5 or so years. Those are just broad goals for the town that it would be good if we all took a look at and just ask the question, they've been there for a while, is there anything about these goals? Those are strategic. Are any of these need to change? Is anything missing? Should anything go away? And then I think what we're talking about also is FY23 goals. What are the specific things that we'd like to see happen in FY23? So it's
Like a
probably
leash
a
law or something
two-stage.
like that? I mean, things that we know
Yeah,
the town
yeah.
is, I mean, I'm being
Stuff like-
honest, right?
yeah,
That
yeah.
that people are constantly bringing up, so it's
Right.
our responsibility to deliver something.
Right.
And so I don't disagree with that at
yeah,
all.
yeah.
That we should know every week we come in, or every other week we come in here,
Right.
are we achieving what the town's asking of us?
Right.
So
And there were some good examples, I think, of last year where the financial tests, the financial policies that we pursued for a while, the shift in capital funding and the methods that we use, those are all real examples of BOS goals. Certainly, they were the town administrator's goals too, but they were examples that were driven by wanting to get the town on a different business footing. So I think that's correct. Okay. That's it for that topic?
So what are the dates that we're agreeing to get things done by? Just so I can write those down, make sure I have the right dates.
So you need, between now, prior to the 2nd of August, and actually, it should be at least a week before the end of July, you should have your assessment of Christine's performance against her goals for FY22.
So are you saying a week before August 2nd or August 2nd?
Yeah, probably a week before the meeting, so that Jamie has time to compile them.
All right.
On the 2nd, we will take a look at her compilation and see what it is, and see how coherent and consistent it is. We'll have a discussion of that. It'll actually be it'll be a discussion of your performance, but not the discussion of your performance. So that if there's issues with the compilation or questions we have around, hey, what happened to this, or how did we handle that, we can talk about that. We also will come in on the 2nd with comments on the town goals that are on the town website. Any changes, if any, to that you think we should be discussing, and what you think would be a good set of FY '23 goals.
I'm
for the
sorry,
Board of
I'm sorry, Gus, I was trying to figure out, so I'm saying that we're gonna evaluate Christine by the 26th of July.
That's,
And
yes.
then what are the other dates that you're just
And
giving me
then,
that I
so the
wasn't-
next meeting is the 2nd of August.
Yep, and we're
So
gonna
on the
discuss,
2nd of August, we will be reviewing the compilation that Jamie comes up with
okay,
from from that evaluation that you did by the 26th of July. We also should come in, having reviewed the town goals, just simply to say, are there any of these town goals that we need to revisit, revise, eliminate? Is there anything missing?
and that's by August 2nd too?
Well, that's a topic for the August 2nd meeting.
Okay,
And then have your thoughts about what the Board of Selectmen's FY '23 goals should be. So specific to this fiscal year, what do you think the goals of the Board of Selectmen should be?
so Chris, can you circulate the past goals as well, please? Select board
Absolutely.
goals, so-
Yep.
Save me looking for them, thank you.
So we get to Jamie our assessment. When's the first time we read Jamie's assessment? On August
On the
2nd?
2nd.
Okay.
Which then says we would have the formal, final conversation with Christine on August 30th.
Okay.
Does that work okay for you,
So
Christine?
you could have that slightly in advance if it were part of the packet for the meeting. It has to be made available to the public at the point where you get it.
So if by chance she doesn't summarize something correctly, we just correct that ourselves amongst conversation the first time we read it?
And we'll work those cross threads out on the 2nd of August. If there's any of those issues, any questions, if we think something needs to be changed, we can always push it back to Jamie if, there's some sort of recompilation. But
Okay.
So is Jamie the best person to do this? I mean, she's trained as an attorney, not really a personnel person.
She's a labor attorney, that's what
All
her
right, all right,
background is.
all right.
Okay, so I'm gonna ask one more question, just to make sure I don't break any open meeting laws. Can I talk one-on-one with Jamie? When I give her the document, just to make sure she so there's no,
You can talk about your own,
right, I'm not gonna ask about
Yeah,
this, but I just
right.
wanna make sure that if
same way as if you were going in and talking one-on-one with Chris, which you have the
Okay.
right to do as well.
I do that occasionally.
Okay, we good?
I think we're good.
All right. Next item, board and committee appointments and reappointments. The only one that we're talking about today is the discussion and a vote to establish a leash bylaw review committee. So I think our action tonight is to establish the committee and announce or advertise for people who would like to be on that committee.
And then we are looking for some feedback in terms of what you're looking for in terms of the charter. Are you looking at a leash bylaw for the entire town? Is this limited to just the state hospital? We didn't want to start drafting that until we had a conversation and got some feedback from you as to what you're looking for, what you would like the committee to accomplish.
I hate this when I lose what I brought
Are
with
are
me.
you asking our opinion tonight, Chris, or are you looking to have this later,
Well,
input later?
Well, I don't think you're going to wait at least 2 weeks to appoint the committee, so you're not going to appoint the committee, I would assume, until August. So you can send me your information that you'd like to, and we can start to put together a charter for the committee, and then we can bring it back on August 2nd, and you can start to review it and determine what's in there that you would like or what you don't like. I think we just need a sense of, is it townwide or is it specific to the state hospital? So
You
that
want an
gives us
answer to
some,
that? You want an answer to that now?
I think that gives us some direction to at least get started.
Yeah, I townwide. for
Okay.
me.
So I just mouthed to her, I'm townwide with as well. I mean,
And I'm going to disagree, because the problem area we've had is the state hospital. So
Wheelock's been a
if we
problem
get,
too.
if we get a,
you get Wheelock as well. So all the dog walkers that don't like what we're doing at Medfield State Hospital, we just redirect that same problem over to Wheelock. I think if we take us with the dog walkers aren't just putting themselves wherever they want in Medfield,
I predict that this is just kicking this down the road for another year.
taking us down the road.
Yeah, it's kicking the can down, because we will not get an answer for what needs to happen at the state hospital. We're looking at a development starting there in a year. all of the complaints, not all the complaints, because Wheelock, I understand, is a problem too. If you wanted to say State Hospital and Wheelock,
Okay.
that would be okay, but the problem isn't people walking their dogs down the streets of Medfield.
I don't disagree. So if we can do that, all right, so that just clarified for me. If we look at the three
If you wanna
potential
make it like
problem
an open
areas,
space-
you've
if you wanna
got,
make it
you've got the
open
rail
space.
trail, where we know people walk their dogs and they're off leash. We
That's-
know
yeah.
Wheelock, and we know the state hospital. Like, those are three givens that are the go-to. So if we had to take the top three that we know we get complaints on, we know that there's enough open space for people to let their
So-
dogs off leash when being on leash would be
Not
safer.
the rail trail.
What do you mean?
Dogs shouldn't be off leash at the rail trail at all.
But the statement is
But-
they are. So that's why even
But
though
the
they
po-
should
what
be.
so what I'm saying is the policy for the rail, I may be wrong. The policy for the rail trail is dogs must always be on a leash.
And if they don't, what happens?
If they don't, then that's a great question for the committee, but I'm suggesting we're gonna have a different set of issues for dogs that can potentially be off leash up at the state hospital. I'm not sure whether there's any circumstances where a dog can be off leash at Wheelock, because I don't go there.
Oh, in the back, huge.
So I think it's a
So-
big
Across the rock
mistake.
field and.
But see what I'm getting at is there's two places where it's likely that we actually aren't trying to say your dog must always be on a leash. I think the rail trail, I think the sign of the rail trail says dog. I think the rule there is that they have to be on a leash.
I'm only asking because the same sign sits at the state hospital right now in the quad, and there's no teeth to that.
Right.
So so if we're gonna do
Right.
this, and we're gonna try to make sure that we're putting some leash law in effect, that we're at least addressing areas we know there's.
So let's not call it a leash law, because that makes it sound like all we're doing is putting dogs on leashes.
Okay,
So
fair
let's
enough.
let's call it a dog control bylaw that specifies the rules at what level of control dogs need to be under what circumstances.
Dog control, not leash.
So I think it's
bylaw.
a-
That's
I would
important.
suggest, Gus, that it's a big mistake to try to parse out different rules for different parts of town. I think it makes much more sense to have a one set of rules for the whole
So
town.
then that means all dogs have to be on leashes at all
So
times.
what I would suggest is that actually that we give this issue to this committee that we're gonna create apparently, and let them work on it,
Well,
and
that's
give
what
us a
we're-
recommendation as to
that's
whether it should be just
So
the
the-
hospital, just Wheelock, the rail trail, or whether it should be the whole town. They're gonna look at the issue, let them decide,
But
and
no,
make a
but the
recommendation.
charter has to say, what is it we're asking them to look at?
Yeah,
We're talking
well,
about
we've
scope
we've
here.
got an issue with dogs, we know, in certain areas, and, come up with a solution for our town, please.
Go ahead, Mark.
So there's really two activities here. There's the walking the dog around the neighborhood or linear, and then there's the perceived need with dogs, the desire to take them somewhere where you can just take them off leash and let them take off and run like crazy.
Right.
And I think that's what Wheelock and the state hospital have been used for, more so than walking a dog around on paths and
Totally agree.
trails.
Right.
So the issue is, do you want to permit that and under what circumstances?
Right. Yeah, the point about Wheelock being a lot like the state hospital, I don't go to Wheelock, so that didn't register, but that's fine. I would say that's true. That's the open space, to me, it's the open space areas that are the issue. It's a loose dog wandering around a neighborhood, somebody calls the animal control officer, and they get picked up and they get brought to the pound, because they're supposed to be on a leash or tied up. That's automatic in all the neighborhoods. That's not automatic when you, probably even if you went to Noon Hill right now, it's probably not automatic on the trails.
Right.
I'd be surprised if it was. Rocky Woods, it's not automatic.
Right.
Yep.
You're gonna need two sets of rules or regulations for the hospital, because you're gonna have.
Bill, microphone?
You're gonna have what Trinity owns, and you're gonna have what town owns.
I don't. I don't see that that's necessarily.
Well, so you're
true.
talking about dogs running loose and everything else. Dogs are gonna run loose, essentially, I would assume, on the open space that the town retained, as opposed to through the campus area and everything else. And whatever you set up, I'm gonna assume is gonna have to also be subject to whatever Trinity decides they wanna have for rules with dogs and everything else on their property as well.
I mean.
I'm not looking for an answer, I'm just saying that you.
No, but, Bill, actually, Trinity said it, they basically said, we expect this to be like any other neighborhood. So there's no, to me,
No,
there's no,
that's-
that's what they said.
No, they said they wanted to be treated with respect. They wanted the property to be treated with respect, proper decorum, proper whatever.
So you bring up a good point, though, so let's think about this. So at State Hospital today, you have a building and there's green grass around it. Who owns the green grass around it, Trinity or Medfield? I think
Depends.
Medfield only owns the sidewalks, right?
Right.
And the only reason I'm saying that is I live on Metacomet. Rooney is never on leash in my property. His little brother is never on leash across the street. And we bring them back and forth, we carry them. But they're running free on their own grass. So if somebody has a dog up at Trinity and they live in one of those apartments and they want their dog to be on that grass area to the building they live in, that's Trinity's call, right?
I would guess that's Trinity's call, yeah.
This is a little more complicated than just sending the state hospital to the hospital. I mean, you've got
Frankly, it's likely that they'll have a designated dog park area for their tenants or whatever, and they won't be allowed to just generally wander around the
Because it's an
property.
apartment complex. It's not the same as if you have a house.
No, I see that,
yard.
but the grass around that building is gonna still be Trinity land. It'll be the sidewalks that are owned by the town.
Right,
And then
Correct.
even the.
streets and sidewalks.
And then even the quad area, like if I think of where today they have the little area, with, I forget what you call it, that's designed into the grass. I mean, again, that's still gonna be Trinity land. Now, if somebody has a dog off leash, that's not our responsibility to go after, that's a Trinity property owner. that-
Right.
Sure.
Okay, and that's why I just wanna make sure you bring up a good
Yeah.
point, Bill, that it's a little gray up there, cause there's grassy spots that are not town-owned, and the back field, the front field, et cetera.
You've got Belforge as well.
Yep.
Yeah, that piece of the problem for me is gonna resolve itself in 2 years.
But your committee's trying to draft something that's, I mean, you need to think about the issues here, that the subtleties of the different, who owns what.
I think, to go back to the point I made, you take up the fact of what's going on right now in two defined areas and simply determine whether you want that, to formalize a process to allow that to continue, and on what terms and conditions.
Right,
And,
right,
or you won't get anything done.
right.
Okay.
So I think the scope, I understand that it may be Wheelock and the hospital, but it's not just come up with a bylaw for the town. I mean, it may be folded into a bylaw for the town that we already have, but it seems to me those are the problems that need to be addressed. And Bill, to your point, in my head right now, I'm saying Trinity owns that in 2 years. We have a problem now, so you're right, 2 years from now, Trinity will start calling some shots. My guess is whatever shots they call will be more restrictive,
Yep.
or certainly no less restricted than anything we might come up with. And I'm actually thinking more about the 2 years, and some of it we won't have a problem because it'll be beyond a construction fence. But
But you'll have going up the Arboretum, going down the North Field, coming along. to
that's
the
all
left,
our property.
Yeah.
Yeah, all our property,
and-
sure.
And then everything on McCarthy Park.
Right.
When there's a ton of people that walk back there. There's a lot of people that come right up through Kingsbury parking lot and then pop out at McCarthy Park.
So that's all of these things, we talk about a committee that has to figure this stuff out.
And to make sure that we don't waste their time, I want to make sure that when, let's just say we're now 9 months down the road and we have a group that's brought forward some bylaws. Today, we have bylaws that are not enforceable. What's going to change that'll make them
That's
enforceable?
part of their problem. It's part of their problem. They may need a different kind of solution.
The only thing that it makes this accept an exception to the non-enforceability is dogs are independently regulated by statute and the separate bylaw, which ties into the state statute, which allows you to deal with nuisance dogs. So at some point, a dog running around, it's not just violating a local town bylaw, it's potentially consequences for being designated a nuisance dog. There's a whole process by statute and local bylaw, so you've actually, although the potential consequences, worst-case scenario, are pretty severe, they are there.
But the reality is that that's not how we deal with our dogs. I mean, we've had maybe, I've been a select board member for a couple of decades, and we've had maybe 5 of those.
Because usually, it's not just that the dog's running around, which could be a potential, it's that something happens. The dog attacks another dog, the dog attacks a person, what have you. And then you've just elevated it all to a much higher level.
So in the case of a
Right, they haven't been
jubilant
amended, Pete.
golden retriever puppy running up behind a 70-year-old woman walking on the quad and in pure exuberance, jumping up onto her back and knocking her to the ground, that's not a nuisance dog. That's an exuberant puppy that potentially could have killed a 70-year-old woman.
So what is the goal going to be? And listen, I'm 100% in support of this, right? 'Cause I need, but what is the goal going to be if that exuberant little puppy does that in 2024? Is there going to be some recourse that this bylaw is going to have in effect, or?
I think that's the goal.
I think that's, I mean,
I mean, you have
you're
to
you're
define
asking
the
the right
problem and
question.
define the solution and figure it out.
Again, it's in the bigger context, there were just a range of statutes, albeit somewhat antiquated, but there's no vicious intent required with a dog. If a dog causes injury or damage, as Pete knows, there's liability on the dog owner. Legally anyway, whether it's a practical matter, that's a different story, but it's a liability claim and homeowners' policies deal with it all the time.
Yep.
So on that hypothetical, whether the dog is a vicious intent or exuberant, he knocks somebody down, they're injured, they've got a claim against the owner of the dog. It's that simple.
So there may be some creative ways in a bylaw, even if the idea of putting in fines and rules and the fines don't get enforced, or the fines either inconsequential or they don't get enforced, maybe there's a way we can write a bylaw that says if you have a dog off leash in an area that's supposed to be on leash, and that dog does hurt somebody, that by this, maybe there's a way to word that bylaw to make it explicitly clear that you recognize you are personally liable for those damages. Maybe there's a way to make that personal liability more legally searing through a bylaw, I don't know, than might otherwise be the case if we just use the common understanding of the law. You know, if there's an explicit call-out and it happens, I would assume that gives it a little more legal weight if somebody gets hurt and they want to pursue
Especially
legal.
for the insurance company
Yeah.
representing the injured person,
Right.
right? They like, you live in a town that has a
Evidence,
following.
Right.
evidence of violation of a bylaw is evidence of liability.
Yeah.
Yep.
So there might be some ways to write it in a way that the accountability is automatic, built into it. I don't know.
Okay, and then I would assume in this charter, we're also looking at, addressing too many dogs with one person, right? So we're not trying to shut down dog walkers.
I don't want to presume that's an answer that this committee may come up with, but I don't think we're going to say we want you to address how many dogs can be there. I think that's their job to figure all that out.
Yeah, so I maybe phrased that the wrong way. Let me
Yep.
phrase, so one of the areas that we've talked about a lot are that dog walkers are part of the problem with getting 3 people have 20 dogs real quick. So that would just be one of the things we would ask them to look at is, what do we look at for dog walkers in the 2 areas that we're addressing, Wheelock and State Hospital?
I would do it townwide. I would not limit it. I think that's a mistake to limit it to just the 2
Well,
areas. So-
Pete, if,
Yeah, definitely.
They all have limits, especially apartments have limits, everybody has limits.
Pete, would it be reasonable to say that this is a bylaw that is going to address open space in town and what the rules for dogs would be? Because as a because in fairness, whatever we might come up with for the open space around the state hospital, clearly we're hoping is something that would work at Wheelock. And as a practical matter, I would hope that would be something that would work up on Noon Hill.
Well, we have this is why it still confuses me. If you go to our town charter and you go to the dog, we actually have a $25 fee, a $50 fee. So we have a town-wide dog bylaw that exists.
With no one to enforce it.
Right, so now we're gonna do this next bylaw.
Well, the problem is, bringing it full circle, is you don't have, you don't have a strict leash law per se, because there's a provision as long as the dog is under voice control.
Right.
So that's where it all gets muddied, as opposed to either the dog's on the leash or off the leash, and do you permit them off the leash? That's simple. Which means you really have to come back and address that voice command language.
Okay.
The other thing that I think in this charter, I actually had started to write a charter, but given this discussion, I'll keep working on it. The other thing I think the three of us should think about is who we want. I understand we're gonna solicit people who wanna be on the committee, but I think we should consider who, not necessarily who by name, but who we want represented on this committee. So when we're thinking about the people who wanna be on it, we may get an overly heavy distribution of people who have a particular view.
Oh, yeah.
And so the mere fact they volunteered doesn't mean we need to come up with a reason to say no. It's like we need a distribution of people. We're gonna need, we clearly need a voice for the dog walkers who have dogs that they wanna be able to let off leashes. We clearly need the voice of the people who don't have dogs and aren't comfortable around dogs and don't walk up at the state hospital anymore because we haven't done anything about the dogs. We, I think, need some voice from Bill, either your neighborhood or somebody who's an abutting owner who's had experience with dogs that are out in the area that's running, that it's just a voice. It's not anybody gets their way, but that's a voice that has to feed into this. And so as we think, and the other group that personally I would like to see, if they've got somebody, and I'm guessing they would, I'd like to see somebody from VizWiz, which is an organized dog group, which has been able to bring a lot of dogs up there in an organized fashion, use that property, and from my perspective, in all the time I've ever known them, has been an absolutely, totally responsible, organized dog organization. So they're both advocates for dogs being able to run free, but also more socially conscious about what you have to do to maintain the right to do that than any individual is likely to be. And I would, given what I've seen from them in terms of the extra time they put into cleaning up at the state hospital, the way they've conducted all of the activities I'm aware of, having them as a voice which, has already demonstrated the ability to trade those things off, I think is a good thing.
I would also then reach out to somebody on Haven, because I can tell you, if you've never walked Wheelock,
Yeah,
you get the Bay
yeah.
Circuit Trail, there's a
Yeah.
lot of people that,
Haven being another
there's
good
a
place,
proven path there. But I do know that there's a cul-de-sac there, and there are people that park their car in the cul-de-sac, their dogs are off leash, and instead of jumping over the rock wall and going onto the field, they go into people's backyards,
be a
et cetera.
good-
So if we're gonna be,
Yeah.
the same thing, if we're gonna look, and I'm
Yeah.
not saying that in a bad way, that if we're gonna look to state hospital, I'd like to make sure that someone on Haven is represented,
Right.
so that they can voice.
The
their
trick
concerns.
is to find people who represent all those views, but not set up a cage match.
Right.
So it's people who actually have those views, but are prepared to come together to collaborate.
Yep.
To figure out what's a reasonable set of rules that takes everybody's issues into account.
Otherwise, we don't want
You have to think about the hunt club and how you're gonna accommodate the hunt club, and do they get the special permit, do they get whatever, so that's.
oh, because
Yeah,
their dogs
that's
are
a-
running off
that's a
leash,
sort
right?
of a
You've got the hounds that are
They're
literally.
they're all on voice command.
In pretty good
But I'm
ways.
saying that
Yeah.
you just-
I mean, I would see them as,
When you do your
Brody would be good
I
there,
would
right? He'd
s-
chase that little critter.
I mean, if somebody from the Hunt Club wanted to be there, that would be great. But I also see the Hunt Club in some ways as being sort of the same category as VizWiz.
You could accept
A group of people
something
with a
like
bunch
that.
of dogs that's.
Make
You
it
could
exception.
accept them from the bylaw.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm just saying, it's just something they gotta keep in mind, that's
yeah,
all.
yeah. Okay, so do we need to vote to establish, if we should vote to establish this committee tonight, start the advertising, the 2-week advertising period. It'll be more than 2 weeks because we're not back until the 2nd of August.
I think there's a whole list of criteria you're gonna want in that
So-
solicitation from what you're talking about.
Right. So all three of us can think about what that criteria needs to be. I will start to, in fact, maybe the way to do this is I've already started to draft something,
Okay.
but we each can do this, send it to Christine, who can compile. So Christine will be the only one who really knows what we're thinking until the 2nd of August. Say that again?
I said, don't confuse it with the compilations.
Yes, yeah. Don't send Christine the individual evaluations for compilation. Okay. Is there anything further that we need to talk about? Or do we actually need to vote to create this committee, or are we good?
Mark, do we need to vote, or are we just, we know time to?
At some point, I'm
You're
not
gonna have to
sure
vote
how
to-
we
you're gonna have to vote to
tonight.
appoint
Yeah,
people,
well,
so
that's
until
what
then, I
thought.
think you
Okay,
can just.
so we're
give us the
saying we want to do it.
authorization for Yes.
We're starting the advertising period, saying that we're looking for volunteers. As a practical matter, we won't be coming back to it until the 2nd of August, so it's more than 2 weeks. I already know there's some people from Facebook that are, on Facebook already volunteered, so I'll certainly make a point to get back to that group and say, well, you asked for it, now the gate's open, and we'll have more specificity as we go along.
I just wanted to make the observation that this is kind of a default thing because land, including open land that's under care, custody, control of specific town boards and commissions like Park and Rec, as far as I know, prohibits dogs on their property. I think the schools do too, with perhaps the exception of Wheelock. Cemetery, that was
Cemetery,
another,
yeah.
so they're already basically saying no.
Right.
Actually, I would say that's not true. The junior high, or the middle school, whatever they call it, and the senior high, there's no saying you can't have dogs up there, period. I've never seen a sign. And everyone brings their dogs to lacrosse games, to baseball games, so I would say that piece of property in town, I've never seen no. I've never seen no at Wheelock, never seen no over at Dale Street.
Well, I know definitely Park and Rec had that
And they say you
policy.
just can't be on the field, but you can walk your dog along the edge, because people bring their dogs to baseball games. And I've never seen anyone kicked off.
Okay, I mean,
Yeah, I know a few years ago, Wheelock was a problem because people were letting their dogs run loose on the fields, and people were picking their dogs up to drink from the water fountain there. So basically, you have this fountain for kids, and you have kids playing on fields that quite possibly, if they have a cut and they get knocked to the ground, they're gonna wind up skidding across dog feces.
The waste was a real problem, because
yeah.
you cut the grass
Yeah.
and you're cutting the waste and spreading it over.
Right. But perhaps at the school, to your point, there may not be signs that actually say what's allowed, but the idea of people bringing their dog on a leash to sit on the sidelines to watch a game is a little different than people saying this is an open field and there's nobody here, so let me take my dog off the leash, and they'll pee right at the goal line, or they'll poop over here, and it'll just get blended in with the rest of the stuff once the lawnmower cuts the grass.
I would say the good thing, having walked the baseball fields at the high school, the football fields, I think people, from all the years of 10 years of walking Rooney up there, people respect that. There might be one knucklehead every so often, but otherwise you're just seeing them cut through the paths and yeah, so it's, I don't see those as
We
problematic.
may be hitting the 3%, 97% rule again, where
Yeah.
you don't see very many of the ones that do it, but if some were doing it, that's our problem, is the 3%. It's not, nobody's,
Well, and then it's gonna be a matter of whatever we do we impact that 3%, or that 3% is
well,
just.
I think that's why we're forming the committee. We want a committee that's gonna impact that 3%.
So could we have someone like our animal control officer on its committee? Because to do this without their input is completely my.
Oh, they should absolutely be on it, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good idea. All right. Enough on that?
Yep.
Okay. Let's see, next, vote to post the town's community aggregation plan, reopen the public review period from July 12th to August 2022, and schedule a public hearing to review changes to the plan for August 2nd, 2022. Nick, the question for you is, in the email exchanges that took place over the last week or so, I think Bob was out of town, was arguing against the 2nd of August. Megan was not available on the 2nd of August. Did you come away with any conclusion of whether the committee actually wants that public hearing on the 2nd of August or on the 30th of August?
Megan's on right now.
August 30th.
Oh,
My takeaway was, and I'll promote Megan if that's okay, was that August 2nd was okay to go, since Patrick will handle most of that. But
okay.
if I
Megan,
missed
I
that,
didn't
Megan
notice
maybe
you.
might be able to clarify.
Did you just promote Megan, or did she
Yeah,
just run
she's on,
away?
yeah.
Okay. Megan, I was kind of following the emails. Initially, it sounded like we were shooting for the 2nd of August, and then Bob said I think he gets back that day, and you said you weren't available, so I kind of walked away from that thread saying, so does the committee want the 2nd of August for the hearing in the interest of time, or are we going to shoot for the 2nd BOS meeting at the end of August? Do you happen to know the answer?
Well, I think in the interest of time, it should be on the 2nd,
Okay.
would be my recommendation. It's not substantially different from the last plan,
Yeah, I agree.
so
Okay.
I think
So it is the
Patrick can
2nd.
handle it. And
So
you'll be
that's-
there?
That's an
And you
accurate.
could be there?
Okay. Nick, you want to have any comments on the,
I think Megan's better positioned.
Megan.
Are you good to give a summary of what people will be seeing if they're interested in the changes?
Sure, yeah. Welcome to have a good look at the updated documents. They look like they've changed quite a bit, but a lot of it has to do with just language around communication with participants in the program, which I think will just benefit our community. What happened was the DPU, as you probably know, has had a very lengthy time. Once the plans get in there, some have been in there for nearly 2 years. In any event, some plans came out of the review process, and the DPU had some suggestions that they want all the plans to incorporate. So we adjusted our plan at this point rather than waiting till, our 2 years to adjust the plan. So we've got the most updated plan, and we thought it would be great to have the community look at it. And then after the second hearing, we'll keep is it a review process, right, open for a little bit more, and then on the 30th of August, we can have the selectmen can actually have their vote to move this forward to the DPU. I think there was one interesting change that you'll be hearing about from Patrick, but that is that we used to have we had 4 different tiers of programs that we wanted. The basic service, a drop-down one, 100% option, and then a 50% option. And instead of calling it the 50% option, we're changing it to a midpoint option so that residents will always be able to choose a program that has the midpoint between 100% Class 1 renewable energy and whatever the state is requiring. And then that also gets us around changing the percentage of renewables without letting the whole community know. So anyway, all good changes. And it should be pretty straightforward. If you do look at the documents, it does look like a lot of things changed. But also you will find among the resources is like a little handout that has where the changes were and what they were. So you could have a look at that if anybody has questions.
anything else? So I think from my perspective, the committee decided to kind of go through we're opening up the public, the public process now, public comment process now. And that public hearing, the formal public hearing will be on the 2nd of August, but it almost makes it feel like there's a bigger change to the plan that requires this sort of formal sequence of events, when in fact it was the changes. I think, Megan, from my standpoint, the intent behind the changes more than anything was to do more to make sure that individual customers were, aware of the information. So it was kind of trying to make sure that the right information was pushed out to customers in a more thorough and maybe timely fashion than was the case before. It's not like there was any major structural changes to what the regulators required for the program. So it feels like a formal redo of the steps we just went through, but it wouldn't surprise me if most people would look at the changes and go, well, gee, there's nothing, none of this is the substantive stuff that I was paying attention to last time, so.
Well, and
I agree.
when we talked
And we
about the
just thought we
August
would. We've waited long enough, we might as well just let the community have another look at it.
And the fact that they're good changes, the sense that that this, as we look around Medfield, it's pretty quiet. So how many people are around to really see it? I don't think we're pulling anything fast here, because it's all good. It's all more information, not less.
Right.
So if people do want to ask, they have the 30 days, but I don't think we're hurting anybody if not around.
So this is a vote, we need a vote to post the town's community aggregation plan, the amended community aggregation plan, and to reopen the public review period from July 12th to, it says August 2022, but I think that, well, the public hearing will be the 2nd of August, so I think it'll go at least out through that.
We'd say 30 days from today, I think.
So it's the 12th, July 12th to August.
It has to be 22, 28.
Say
Yeah,
again?
we have it posted as August 22nd, 2022.
Okay, thank you.
22nd.
Okay, so August 22nd, 2022.
That makes sense.
Doesn't really matter. We don't meet until the 30th anyway, so. And we'll be scheduling the public hearing on August 2nd. So can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that's approved. It's done. We're on
Thank you.
track.
Have a good night.
Thanks, Megan.
Thank you.
Bye, Megan.
All right. Next, vote to execute the deed and grant of easements for land. This is Pete, you're going to recuse yourself.
I'm going to recuse myself.
Vote to post the town's, vote to execute the deed and grant of easements for land off Ice House Road, known as the Hinckley South Project, to Medfield Holdings LLC. Selectman Peterson has recused himself for this discussion because he's in a butter. Any questions or comments, Eileen?
No, I read through it, and I was kidding. The other document was already pre-signed. That was what, the original deed? So, no, no questions, I think we're good.
This will just be held, they're not ready to close. The DHCD is holding the project up at the moment.
Okay, so we're not actually signing, so,
You're gonna vote it, you could sign it tonight, I can notarize your signature, and I'll simply hold it until it's needed.
okay, so you can notarize. So I was going to say it's a notarized signature, but if Mark can do that, if we vote to move ahead,
That way
we can
we
do
have
that.
it, we don't have to worry about running around later on.
I had one trivia question. I think I know the answer to it, but in the LDA, the point of contact, the points of contact for the town was Town Hall, 459 Main Street, attention, Town Administrator, and copy to Mark Sorrell, P.O. Box 9, Medfield. The points of contact that are called out in this quitclaim deed basically say the town with copy to Mark Sorrell, and I think it's your Franklin. It's not the P.O. Box 9 for sure. Does that matter?
Not really a deeded, is that in the LDA or is the deed?
Yeah, what I'm saying is the address, the two addresses for the point of contact for the town, in the
We can
LDA.
I'll look at that, but we could always change it out, that's not the signature pages anyway, so.
Okay,
It's
well,
not a big-
it
it's
seems
not
to
a
me,
big
it
deal.
seems to me they should be consistent,
Yeah.
unless it was, well, the LDA is superseded by this quitclaim deed, but I'm just
Yes.
looking at, somewhere down the road, somebody takes a look at a legal document, says, oh, here's where it has to go, and then it turns out that, no, that's not where it had to go to a different address. It just seems like an avoidable point of confusion at this point in the process.
The deed has P.O. Box 9 here in Medfield.
Then look at the LDA, it has something different.
Well, the deed, the most critical thing is that the deed stay in
Right.
town, and frankly, I don't know how much longer I'm gonna be on the job anyway, so it's a moot point. This is
Something
going,
I don't know about.
Oh, so I think, so I see what you're seeing here. It's a town attorney, 5 North Meadow.
There you go.
Oh, it's in the document,
So,
okay.
item 26, and that's of the, what are we looking at here? Is this the LDA or is this the?
This is the
quitclaim.
document that's already been signed.
So the LDA, paragraph 26,
Notices.
has, your address is 5 North Meadows Road.
that's the office address. That's the physical office address.
So one possibility is you can use either one and it doesn't matter. What I'm getting at is the
It
two
really
legal
doesn't.
documents
As
call
far
out
as
two
the
different
deed
places.
and, the deed and easements is very little situation where there's gonna be notice. It's not like the LDA, which is for a work in project, it's process, it's a title issue.
Right.
So, as long as it's an accurate current address, I don't have a problem with it.
Okay. So we want to vote to authorize, or to execute the deed and grant of easements?
Yes.
Have a motion?
So, I have to read it, then you second it, is that how we?
Yes.
Okay.
Item 8.
Item 8.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, vote to execute the deed and grant the easement for land off Ice House Road, Hinckley South Project to Medfield Housings LLC.
I would just add, to be held by the town attorney until such time as the town is prepared, both parties are prepared to close.
When do you anticipate the closing, Mark, just out of curiosity?
As I said, the holdup is the state agency that has to approve the affordable component of it. They, when the litigation, when the appeal was taken, they just stopped working on it.
Got it.
So now they're trying to get them back up to speed.
Okay.
Okay, so I'll redo that.
Read it again.
All right, vote to execute deed and grant of easement for land off Ice House Road, Hinckley South Project to Medfield Holdings LLC to be held by town attorney until such date?
Until such time as the
Such-
parties are prepared to close.
Okay, such time of parties prepared to close.
Okay, I second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carries 2-0, with 1 selectman recused. Let's see, and I think you can come back, Pete, if you want. Next item, vote to authorize the town administrator to execute a license agreement and right of entry with Trinity Financial for access to Medfield State Hospital buildings for continued building assessment work, including structural reviews and hazardous material assessment.
And that falls in line with the LDA, right? So,
Yeah, so we had a license agreement to do the first part of the due diligence, so it's just a continuation.
So, motion,
So moved.
second?
all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that's approved. I think we're skipping the next item, Christine.
Yeah, I apologize, we're gonna hold on 10. I didn't realize the chief was unavailable to speak with you this evening, so
Yep,
we'll hold until
okay.
she's available.
Okay. Item 11, vote to sign an engagement letter with Mead, Tellerman, Costa for legal services related to the Medfield State Hospital. And from having talked with Christine, this is a continuation
That makes
of
sense.
the legal support they've been providing us so far.
They are
So
in the
moved.
know with what was going on, so that's good.
Been moved.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. And then, vote to sign the engagement letter with William Solomon for cable licensing renewal.
So moved.
Second?
Is there anything that we need to talk about? Is there anything other, is that anything other than administrative
straightforward, right?
renewal? Right?
Yeah, it's,
He's been this is a highly specialized area. There's like basically 2 law firms in Massachusetts that do it. He's one of the 2, and he's been on board since I've been town council because I know him personally.
Okay.
I didn't realize you had to go, like, it's that technical to actually renew.
Well, it's not, the renewal per se isn't, it's the financial terms, in terms of what they have to pay the community. It's a complex negotiation. It gets really dragged out. We're in the waning days probably of this whole process, but
Anything that helps with the, as they make us pay more, they pay more is okay by me.
so this is the money that basically is used to run the cable access studio. This is where it comes from.
Okay. Motion?
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, that's approved. No citizen comment? We're down to just,
number 13?
Vote to authorize town administrator to sign a license for.
sorry, I'm on my other one. Vote to authorize town administrator to sign a license agreement for use of Medfield State Hospital, August 28th and August 29th for state police military training exercise.
This is an annual exercise that the state police conduct at the Medfield State Hospital.
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Does that shut down the state hospital for the day, or how does that?
No.
Okay.
Hold on. Approved. All right, next is citizen comment. I don't think, Bill, you don't have any competition. No comment. Consent agenda. Zulo Gallery is requesting a one-day beer and wine permit for a one-day beer and wine permit for 3 dates, July 21st, August 11th, and 18th for the Zulo Thursdays on the Deck. And the Dwight Derby House requests a beer wine permit for Sunday, September 18th, 2022, from noon until 6 p.m. for the Medfield High School Class of 1972 reunion.
I would move the consent agenda.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, that passes. And let's see, meeting minutes. First question, let's see, so Eileen, you're only prepared to comment on the first two, I think?
Yeah, I
or
think I'm done.
Only on the first one?
Yeah, only April 26th, and I've got all my feedback to Brittany, so it should be good.
Okay, so you're good, Pete?
I think I'm up to date on all the minutes.
So the four that are listed here,
I think I'm,
you're okay with?
I think so.
So I was okay with April 26th with some editorial revisions, and it still needed the documents and exhibits added at the end. Let me do the good news first. I use normally green, yellow, and red, and I had to use orange for the March 1st minutes, which means they're good enough that we don't need to come back anymore, but I have some significant edits that I made there.
Is that the traffic meeting?
That's the traffic one. Well, yes, of course it is. So let me do the easy ones. December 15th, 2020, very, very minor edit. And the only edit I had was on the segment that talked about the Conservation Commission. It left the word of commission out on every reference. It just kept saying conservation. So it's that one edit. And June 9th, 2020 was okay as it was. On the March 1st one, give me a second here. If I can find the right one. This is it. I'm even going to go full screen on this so I can read it faster. I'm only going through this because I'm prepared to approve it with revisions, but these revisions were significant enough that I want you to hear them, Pete, just if there's anything. It's one thing to have them be purely editorial. It's another thing for them to be a bit more than that. So I had a bunch of editorial stuff. I made a change. I made an addition to the comment about the crash incident rate at the Harding Street, North Street intersection, to add the point that that was made, this was made at the meeting because I made a point to call it out, is that the increase in the number of accidents that have occurred at that intersection coincide with the year that curved line was pointed in the other direction. So basically, that was, to me, a very important point to get into the minutes that was not there. So I added that.
How come that hasn't been corrected?
We should ask Mo that question.
I think we
when he
have
was
a few
here.
times.
I brought it up several times. I assume that I'm just being ignored because there's some rule somewhere that says that North Street was the continuing street. So so we don't care about safety. We care about stripes going in the direction of the continuing street.
But
That's
not
the
how
only
yellow
explanation.
sign- The
I've
yellow
heard.
sign shows the continuous there and you break off there. It's a
I'm
contradiction.
I've watched
Some
for.
good attorney is gonna
I've
have a
watched
field
for-
day with an
I've watched
accident
for
here.
3 years, and I brought it up a number of
Defect
times.
in
and
way,
I
there's a
still-
limit of liability to $5,000.
What's that?
It's a defect in way, if anything, and it's a limit of liability to $5,000.
If I wasn't a selectman, I would very easily find myself with a can of black paint some night.
We agreed we were gonna do that someday.
Well,
It's our community service.
we're not going to talk about it in public meeting. Let's see. In the description of the West Street, Harding Street section, it says recommendations, concept 1, change traffic control eastbound West Street and westbound Harding Street free movement. Restripe center line on east leg of Harding Street to align with West Street. Realign west leg of Harding Street using striping to reduce the angle of approach, so in other words, it would be a more perpendicular. Harding would have a kink in it to be perpendicular to West Street instead of West having a kink in it to be perpendicular to Harding Street. But then it says, to reduce angle of approach, tighten northeast corner radius, other signage and markings. That option was to put a stop sign on Harding Street. So I basically want that to be identified, not merely signage and markings and stripes. So I added that.
I thought that's what we said we didn't want. We didn't
Yeah,
want
we
it.
don't
That's, but this is simply documenting the option as it was presented. That's why we said we didn't want it. But in the minutes, it doesn't say anything about that stop sign. It just says signage and markings. That's a little too vague and benign, in my view. I had a question, maybe you can help me out, you guys can remember. So there's a paragraph in here talking about resurfacing. So we had a discussion with Mo about resurfacing North Street, coming to which he's doing. So resurface North Street for $90,000. That gets you 6 to 10 years of additional time, so you don't have to go through the multi-million-dollar reconstruction of North Street. We have already done some resurfacing on 109 a few years ago.
Mhm.
The paragraph in the minutes says, Mr. Goulet said if we don't resurface, doesn't say what street, then we would have to plan on a Route 109 reconstruction project being put on the Transportation Improvement Program with state and federal money because it's not officially on there yet. They are working on a community committee to discuss desired features on Route 109. So I just said this is confusing. The resurfacing project that was discussed, if I recall correctly, concerned resurfacing of North Street. The Route 109 project has already been intended to be a state-funded project. We did resurface Route 109 a few years back to extend its life in order to give us more time to get the project picked up for state funding. As I recall, the discussion point that came up here was around the project not yet actually having been submitted for inclusion on the state list. Sometime back, we had a meeting where I at least came away with the impression that the project was on the state list. When we had this discussion, it became apparent that that was not yet the case. So what I'm getting at is the vague reference of Mo talking about if we don't resurface, then we'd have to plan on a Route 109 reconstruction. Sounds like Mo was talking about resurfacing 109 again. So I'm totally confused. I just found that totally confusing.
If I remember that conversation, I think it had to do with the ideal construction would be putting in that sidewalk.
Yep.
Right? But that's not part of what the plan is now. I think it's simply resurfacing.
Right.
And that's, because I was sitting next to Bill, I believe, at that meeting. I thought that's what that discussion was about. And then when he
You're
brought it
talking
up again a
about
few
North
months
Street,
ago.
Eileen?
Yeah, North, yeah, I think that's
Yeah,
correct.
North Street is strictly,
Right.
he was like, they're gonna resurface it. They're not doing anything with utility poles or
Right.
anything like that, because it would be crazy
Right.
expensive.
That was my recollection. The way it's worded here, it sounds like Mo's talking about resurfacing. If we don't resurface, we'll have to do Route 109, and it's like, no, you switch streets on us
Yeah.
here.
Well,
So
it's gonna go
so
back.
it's all in here, you can see that.
Mo did say tonight that the 109 is on the tip now.
Yeah, but then there was another place a little bit later on that then I got further confused. It said, in reading the last part of this paragraph, in the meantime, we need to determine what to do with the surface of 109. We would be responsible for the approximate cost of 1.8 million. If that's in fact part of what Mo said, what to do with the surface of 109, then I said, when I read that, it sounds like my previous comment didn't acknowledge an actual discussion about resurfacing Route 109 during this meeting. So if there was one there, then maybe that is what.
My recollection, for what it's worth, was that when they did the resurfacing, it wasn't the whole length of 109, and he was talking outer sections that weren't previously done.
Maybe that's it. So at any rate, I read it,
Take a look.
and I couldn't reconstruct what the notes said, and the notes are in here, but that was sort of substantial from my part. And then, this discussion during this meeting. Hold on. There's a comment in here. Give me a second. I have to, unfortunately, this thing doesn't give you the line
I know.
to where the comment connects, so I have to find the. Was this good? Development, it was in my Selectmen report. The Development Committee has been fairly quiet, with the exception of the discussion tonight about how we would be able to tap Mr. Casey's corporate knowledge on the master plan. The problem with the minutes is the minutes don't ever capture when we had that previous discussion that my comments, the minutes about my comments are referring back to. My comment here is this is referring to a previous discussion during this meeting. It's not called out in the meeting minutes before this. My guess is that our discussion about Pat Casey took place in in conjunction with the discussion of Mike Metzler's resignation from the Development Committee. So I'm guessing that's probably where Pat came up. I just couldn't remember. It's just that the reference, it was a dead-end reference to something that wasn't in the minutes.
Discussion of what the Attorney General said and
Exactly.
Right. So anyway, that's all in the Google Doc going back, but
Okay.
those are the changes that I made to that one. I'm happy to move ahead and approve this, subject to these revisions and comments. So we no longer have to look at this again, as long as Brittany promises to pay attention to my comments and do something about it.
Well, I think I had submitted comments to, well, I know.
Yeah, some of yours are in
Yes,
here.
we've
too.
been
So-
incorporating
Some
all
of
the
yours are in
comments.
here too, so.
But once
what-
I do that, I forget about them, but
So-
I'm happy to move all of these then.
Okay, then and you're recused because you weren't here, so I will second the motion to move to approve with the understanding March 1st is with major revisions, December 15th is with minor edits. And Pete, I didn't have any changes at all to the June 9th, so I don't think you did either. I think that was just a plain document, if I remember right. So, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay. So, they're all approved. Did we do the approval of the one that you did? I forget whether I called
I
for
don't
the
think we
vote.
did, that's well.
Okay, let's go back up to April 26th. Motion to approve.
Oh, yes, so moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Great, okay, so those are all approved. Town Administrator update.
I just have one thing for you this evening. We were notified late today by bond counsel that the IRS audit for the town garage bonds has been closed out, and there'll be no change to the tax exempt status of those bonds. So
Hooray.
as far as the IRS is concerned, it's been closed
Great.
out.
Right.
Yes. So thank you to the financial team that worked very hard to complete that audit with the IRS.
Great. Excellent.
I'll
That's it.
just mention, Mo mentioned this, we should have had him say it, but the North Street project will start tomorrow. The road delays on North Street will start tomorrow. So Monday and Tuesday, they didn't get to work, but they should be showing up tomorrow. So just be prepared for that.
Was that blockage last week just practice? Or is it-
Yes, I guess so.
And are they gonna, do that, so they're gonna start in the center or towards Jane's and move their way towards,
The
You know-
specifics,
I don't
he
know.
said they're gonna start grinding the road down tomorrow. It might take them about half a day, but they expect to start. They have to finish some work up on West Street, then come over this way, so they shouldn't get here until about mid-morning.
okay.
But then they'll be on North Street from that point on.
See, he was afraid to tell me because that's my commute here. So clearly that's why he was afraid to have that conversation.
Yeah, I was going to the vet yesterday. I avoided North Street, and I'm seeing all these cars zip by as I'm doing all the side roads.
Well, I was responsible for the notifications going out and then no work happening, so I felt badly for misleading folks.
Trial run.
Well, I can attest that the chip sealing of Kmark, Marlin, and Shepherd Lane was fast, and Bill, I don't know, you may have, yeah,
It's done, it's good?
yep.
All right, that's good.
Yeah, it was really
Yeah,
quick.
it's quick.
I was surprised, because I was looking at all the people that park there, keep their cars parked on the side of the road. It's like, especially Shepherd Lane, which is this little short cul-de-sac. It's like, you don't get your car out of there now, they're not coming back for another 30 years. You probably want to get that in the driveway now when you have the opportunity, so. And I think the highway department actually quite graciously tracked them down, because it seemed like everything was cleared up. So next meeting dates, August 2nd, followed by August 30th. Such a refreshing period of time to not have weekly meetings because of pressing matters, although
There goes
it's a
the
long
summer.
time to August 30th. Selectmen reports, Eileen.
No, I don't think I have that many. Post, we had the 28th, and we rolled right into the 4th of July
Yeah.
weekend, so I would spend time with my mom down the Cape, I didn't make any of the CAM events.
Pete?
I mentioned already the email about the watering ban, the person who was angry and outraged that people weren't complying. At my office hours on the first Friday of the month, Patricia Bryn came to see me, and she had a list of, a laundry list of about 8 different sort of traffic safety issues. Things like the red light violations at 109 and North Street, traffic blocking the intersection at Brook Street and 109. She thought there should be a second access to Pine Needle Park. there were some detour issues when, on Lowell Mason, when the kids were going to camp, that she thought created a safety issue. And one of my favorite ones of hers was the kids in the downtown on early release days. She thought that it would make sense to have a Medfield police officer presence in the area, either a bike patrolman or a foot patrolman. I thought that was a great idea. She was upset about
Police the children or the people?
she was upset about the MBTA assessment to the town, and I sent all of those along to, most of them were for the chief, so I sent them all along to her. And then the one thing I forgot to mention when I went to the Peak House was that one of the fun things that they have that you can do is basically a gravestone rubbing that they've got set up at a table inside the place. So I did my first gravestone rubbing. So that's just show and tell.
Who is it?
That is Mr. Peak.
Oh, well.
Did
I
you,
have
are
no
you gonna
idea
put that in
what
your
it
fridge
is.
when you get home?
Pardon?
Is that gonna be on your fridge when you get home?
Yeah. I don't think we have any magnets for our fridge anymore.
I had three quick things. The State Hospital Development Committee sort of had I'll call it a closeout meeting in the sense that we've sort of completed the phase that the Development Committee's been focused on and trying to get to the point where we got the approval of transferring the property to Trinity. The plans that the Development Committee the Development Committee kind of agreed to the idea that they would first off remain in existence, anticipating that perhaps we would go to quarterly meetings. The issue is that somewhere for the next 2 years, the Trinity is going to be going through a permitting process, and then maybe 18 months from now or something, that permitting will be done. The town will then have a different issue about figuring out how we want to oversee the construction project. That's probably not appropriate for the Development Committee to do, but for this period between now and then, the Development Committee has the corporate knowledge, the willingness, and probably the right skills to be able to carry the relationship through during this period and help facilitate that. So probably not going to be a lot of heavy lifting, I hope, but they were willing to continue on in that capacity, so they'll be around for another year and a half, 2 years. Second thing, I did go to the CAM this weekend, the Great Scott performance. I had no idea what a Great Scott performance was, but apparently Great Scott is maybe you knew. Did you know Great Scott's a bar?
Yeah.
Was.
You've been there. Okay, so if you're young and you're still going to bars more than I am anymore, you might know what Great Scott was, but I sure as heck didn't. And I gather that these pop-up shows, it sounds kind of like the bar bands that would normally be at the bar. They just kind of go out and do their performances out in different venues. So I was talking to Jerry Potts when we got there. We were there for a couple hours, and basically he said, there's more people here than they would normally get coming into a bar. So they're happy, everybody's happy, they're getting good exposure. So that part was cool. The one cautionary thing that I think CAM will have to deal with is that one of the acts, you got to recognize that on a Saturday afternoon in Medfield at the State Hospital, you have some young, youngish adults that are there, and then you have a lot of families with kids that were probably 5 years and younger. And some of the lyrics from one of the bands was completely not appropriate for that. So, I think this is one of those live and learn things that it's like, well, it might have been a good band, but it wasn't a good band for a family audience on a Saturday afternoon for that one part of it. The other part of it was great. It went fine, but I think that's probably a learning point. And then the last thing that I had was, this is just a comment, in the course of thinking about getting my head into the zone for the leash committee, I actually pulled out the open space committee charter. And this is probably neither here nor there, Christine, but I basically read through it. And every time you read through something, you come up with editorial ideas. One of the bullets that we have in their scope, and I've become sensitive to this because of certain committees that, in my view, have overreached their authority to do things. So I put that on the selectmen when we write charters, that we not do that. One of them is that this Open Space and Recreation Plan Committee will provide guidance in the process and criteria for the town to use in considering future land acquisitions. I would change guidance to recommendations, so that we're clear on that. The last bullet is to serve as the basis for seeking public and private grants and financial resources. And it seemed to me that it probably should say serve as the focal point for, like, then the committee isn't the basis for getting the grants, but they may be the main body that pursues the grant. So that was a minor thing. And then on the membership, given that one of the challenges around open space and recreation space is the allocation of maintenance responsibilities, it struck me that in addition to the planning board, the Conservation Commission and Parks and Rec Commission, there should be a DPW member on there, because they're also one of the ones that's holding responsibility. So to the extent that that hasn't gone to press and cast in stone, those three things, in fact, if you can just, if you want to send that to
that'd be great.
Christine, those are,
Thank you.
and that's all I had.
So can I throw one thing out there? I didn't know where to put this, so.
Sure.
So at some point moving forward, can we put on the agenda to talk about going from a 3-member board to a 5-member board?
Sure.
And talk about, whether it's a good idea, bad idea, but it's something that I've talked to other people in different towns that have gone from 3 to 5, and it's been a good experience, but.
So I'm okay to do it the
We'll
second.
do it on
If
the
you want to do it next meeting, we can have any time you want.
Okay.
You good with that, Pete?
Oh, sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect.
I think we have to do a charter change, don't we?
That's a major charter change too. So it means it has to either go through a charter, full-blown charter commission or special legislation.
Okay.
Probably the special legislation's
So it's
easier.
complicated.
Well, the process of getting it done, but I think the first question is it even something we want to do?
Right, and that is the question, because if we are,
Right.
and I don't care if anything's
Yeah.
complicated, we can get it done. That's never gonna stop me from trying to
Right.
try it, to get it,
Right.
if it's
Sure.
the right thing to do.
Yep.
It's the least of my worries.
Okay, is there anything else?
Move
Motion
to go eat dinner.
Correct.
That's out of order.
You have a second?
Second, over here, you got it.
All those in favor?
Aye, aye.
Aye.
All right,
Okay, we are adjourned. Once again, Medfield TV, thank you very much.
all right, hopefully Mike is enjoying his cruise.